You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello everybody, it is Tuesday here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. This is the Wrestling Rewind, and of course we have a very special show this week because it's a show that I planned today.
That's how we do it here. Winging a prayer.
Not usually, but today was one of the shows where I'm like, oh man, we didn't watch anything. Let's find something. And the WWE Network didn't disappoint. I have
to say, Dara didn't disappoint. The network has a lot of tripe on it. Dara managed to pick us out a lovely wee gem here.
Fair. And you know what? It is a wee gem. I was, when I saw it there, I'm like, oh man, this is made for this show. So that kind of tells you what you guys are in for. But before we get into that, of course, my name is Darragh O'Connor, and I'm joined by the one, the only, the undefeated 1-0. You love him, Mr. Martin Harty. How are things, Martin?
I'm flying. Looking forward to spooky season.
Yeah, and so next week we have a special show where we're going to go through the weird supernatural gimmicks of wrestling. And you know, we were going to
the worst.
Oh,
so
man.
the best will take us about 7 or 8 minutes, and then the rest of the show.
The rest of the show is going to mainly be WCW and also TNA. There was some good TNA content actually. Last week we were talking about Raven actually. I can't remember the name of the channel. Forgive me. It's like Mark Kalai 123 or something like that. Anyway, we talk about him a lot on this channel. I should actually know the name. But yeah, we were talking about Raven last week. It turns out he got inducted to the TNA Hall of Fame or Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame last week.
Oh, I'll actually have to look that up because do you know what? I really like Raven.
Yeah, Raven's awesome.
Even WCW, there was a point where he was really good. Where they actually had a really good storyline going with him, and typically, like WCW, they just let the wheels fall off it.
They threw it away.
And then when WWF just stuck him in the hardcore division, he still kind of made it his own, you know.
But yeah, I mean, like Raven's class, and when you see his stuff in TNA, it's funny because during the Hall of Fame speech, all he does is refer to Impact Wrestling as TNA, so he does what I do. Because I mean, it is, you can call it whatever you want, but still TNA.
So that why they won't put him in the WWF Hall of Fame because he keep calling it the WWF.
I think it's because his career in WWE was very, very poor. But that channel, it was again the name I can't remember. He did a whole review on Raven's time in TNA. It's very good. So I mean, we might actually have to like dig into TNA. But like the problem with old TNA shows is trying to find them. I have quite a substantial TNA DVD collection, but it's only like from 2005 to 2009. The rest of it, we're gonna have to like get a new streaming service or something like that. Well, you have one, but I don't want to pay for it. So
no, I already.
You're gonna have to give us some. You're gonna have to help us with the Patreon, or send some money or whatever. Because
I already curse you under my breath every week when the bloody payment for the network comes out.
It's all right. I mean, Triple H is benefiting from it now, so it's okay.
Yeah, but I'm not like you. I don't like Triple H.
Not yet. You will.
You must. You all come back to Daddy H.
You all come back to Daddy H, exactly. But no, in all seriousness, like once we find a way to kind of watch the TNA stuff, we will dig into it. But anyway, next week it's going to be all the spoopy show. So it's going to be all the weird, crazy, insane gimmicks that most of which, as Martin said, has failed. But that's for next week. So, folks, again, if you want to email us in, you can. You could nerdtoknowmedia@gmail.com, the Wrestling Rewind Show @gmail.com. And it's social media. Go to thewrestlingrewind.com and you can find literally links to all that stuff. And let us know what's your favorite crazy super. Don't say the Undertaker because that's obvious.
Yeah,
Something weird. You know, what weird gimmicks did you like? And it doesn't have to be from WWE. It can be from New Japan. It can be from Pride. It can be from whatever you want. Yeah,
anywhere. If we start opening the box to like Noah.
Noah, yeah. I mean, I named 3 Japanese promotions there. Yeah,
Lucha Underground, like
there you go. I mean, they're all
Lucha
there.
Underground alone. The show will last about 6 weeks.
Yeah. So let us know your favorite or your worst supernatural gimmick, spoopy gimmick, and we will mention them on the show. But Martin, this week we're going to do a tight 55 minutes because I'm going to Rome tomorrow. And my flight's early, so we're not going to go long. We're going to keep this nice and tight. In a show that was,
so that's why we've had to kick Dave off this week.
Yeah, so you don't know, we stayed on talking for another 2 hours. That was a 5-hour show last week.
Oh my god! I was looking at my watch, going, "I have training in 5 hours."
Dave, you know, Dave wanted to talk last week, and he did, and we did a nearly 3-hour show with Martin. That was wild. And guys, if you haven't checked it out, and you're listening on Phoenix FM, thank you so much. But go over to Nerd to Know Media or go over to the True Penny channel where you're able to get that full 2.5-hour show where it took us an hour. Actually, funny story, Martin. So the listeners on Phoenix are going to be very confused by that. Because I actually edited that show to fit into the hour.
It must have been extremely creative. Very brutal editing.
It was the word taking an axe to something doesn't sum it up. Brutally edit that show.
What is it to say about editing? The secret is to kill your darlings.
So I did have to edit the show significantly to make it fit into 55 minutes. But guys, if you're listening to and you're like, "Whoa, that was a really weird show last week," now you know why, because it was 2.5 hours long, cut down into 55 minutes. So if you want to check that out, go over to Nerd to Know Media, go over to True Page channel, because that's where all our shows are, and they're free. But you can support the channel as well by Patreon, etc., etc. Right. So we have already done 1999 in WWE, and I think we have, haven't we? Yeah, I think we have covered WWE in 1999.
It was pre me.
I think it was
pre me era.
But if we didn't, I think we definitely covered the majority of it. We might go in and pepper the shows that we didn't do, because there are some shows that we might have left out before we did full runs, and they're over on YouTube as playlists. So, you know, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the old shows and figure out where the gaps are, and then we're going to finish those, Mark. I think that's probably a good plan. But,
cool.
But one thing we didn't do, and I think I did a lot of 1999 with Dave, we didn't look at a show which was on every Sunday night. It was usually before the pay-per-views, and that was Sunday Night Heat.
Absolutely. And whenever you sent me the wee link saying this is the show we're doing, I was delighted, because as soon as the theme hit, it was like a flood of memories hit me, because again, if you're growing up in Ireland and you don't have Sky TV, Sunday Night Heat was probably the only wrestling
that you watched,
saw that wasn't like a VHS or a tape.
Yeah, the only like weekly show you watched,
live,
even Shotgun and Livewire on Sky.
Yeah,
like not Sky One, not Sky Sports.
So I didn't even have Sky, and it
really?
was only whenever Channel 4 picked up first Sunday Night Heat, and then Channel 4 started picking up not all the pay-per-views, but like a couple of the sort of bigger pay-per-views. And that was only when I started seeing wrestling kind of not live, but started seeing it that it was up to date. Whereas before that, literally all my wrestling came from VHS tapes from the library, tapes from my older cousins, stuff that they'd tape on telly for me. You know, going around every Sunday, we'd go round to Jonesboro. I don't know if anyone knows what Jonesboro used to be, but it used to be this big illegal market where on the border in South Armagh, where they'd sell everything, and you could get yourself like 10 really dodgily taped wrestling VHS tapes for like £5.
The punt was the old Irish pound, which we hope and pray comes back someday.
Oh, if only for the aesthetics. A punt coin was this big, beautiful silver frisbee.
I have one in front of me. It's on my desk.
Oh, it's a weapon.
It's brilliant. But here's the thing: with £5, you could buy a house, you could buy a car, you could buy everything with, and a bag of meanies, and you'd be fine. It was real money, you know. It was. It really was. It felt like real money. Euros don't feel like anything really, but I do miss the pound.
Tokens, aren't they?
Ah, it's wild. Yeah, but look, that's a whole other conversation. But you know, even actually English pounds feel like real money, which is ironic because the value's dropping, but it feels like real money, you know, compared to when you have a like £4 or £5 in your hand, you're like, it feels like money. You don't get that feeling with euros. It's very weird.
I think because when it came in initially, like it's very hard to shift initial perception. So when we first made the change to euro, it was worth less than the sterling. It was worth less than the punt.
Yeah.
And then there was a whole raft of cheeky burgers. The day the change was made, people would get like a €50 note and then literally just put it through a double-sided photocopier and go in the shops with these literally just cut out paper notes and hand them over and be like, God, yeah, like these new euro notes are ridiculous, aren't they?
Wow.
Apparently there was a spate of that all over the country.
Wow, I did not know that. There you go. Look, say what you want about this show. You definitely learned something.
Might not be wrestling, but
no, but you learned something. But anyway, so it's funny because around this time is when the Euro change was happened in 2001. So this was like nearly the end of the punt. Like I remember when that came in. So 1999, 2000 was the heyday really of when you were aware, because we were like 8 or 9 around this time. And then 2001 is when the punt came in. So, it's still relevant. That's my excuse. It's still relevant. Right, but let's get into it. So, I mean, when we were watching these shows with myself and Dave, we would talk about Heat, but we didn't watch it. And I think when we're watching WWE shows, from around this time period, we're probably going to have to watch Heat because a lot happens. And I mean, this show by itself, sorry, 1 second, Brent. This show by itself wasn't. It doesn't feel like a Heat show, It's like it has matches in it, it has storylines in it, and it actually progresses the storyline forward in a way that the first hour of Raw would. But that's what shocked me most about it. Martin, were you kind of blown away by this? Because I was, genuinely.
So the first thing that got me was that this is a pretty good idea. Like, if we're talking about watching WWF pay-per-views from that era, it's a pretty good idea to watch Heat, because Heat was essentially a kind of a wrap-up show for the week. It would, would have a couple of matches on it, mainly mid-card matches, but in between that, they were doing constant promos from what happened on Raw last week, what's happening on Raw tomorrow, what's the upcoming pay-per-view, what are the big storylines from it. So it is actually a pretty good refresher. Like if we are going to, sort of review pay-per-views that maybe we haven't watched in a long time, watching that Heat would probably give us a really good bit of background information on what was happening week to week on WWF to sort of lead up to that pay-per-view.
Yeah, like it's funny because like when you're the perception and what Heat became are very different things. It would be like jobbers or pointless. The most you get would be a tag team title match, tryout matches. That's absolutely what it became. And then Velocity, well, even Velocity itself was great when it started and then kind of, fell into its whole thing. But, I think they should bring Heat back. Like, not as a pre-show. I think the pre-show is lame. I really don't like WWE. And we're not going to do this as a constant comparison thing, but I mean, the closest thing you can say is a WWE pre-show. They're lame. They're a complete waste of time. And you don't feel like anything. Heat,
unless you're Booker T.
Unless you're
then they're the highlight of your month.
Exactly. And I'm sure if you're getting paid, you're probably going to be happy about it too. But I mean, even this random Heat, which is so to put this into context, this is just before the Royal, not just before the Royal Rumble. It's like a week or two away from the Royal Rumble. 2
weeks away. Yeah, it's not even like the go home or anything.
It's the week after Mankind won the belt, the infamous that's going to put some butts in seats.
Amazing.
So this is actually the show directly, because there's only 2 shows at this point. There was only like Heat and Well, there's Shotgun as well,
Yes,
but
this is pre-SmackDown.
SmackDown. This is pre-SmackDown. Yeah, SmackDown wouldn't be a thing until September of that year.
Well, that kind of sort of partly explains why this Heat was kind of really good, because
Yeah.
it wasn't until SmackDown came along that Heat was kind of pushed into being the third sort of weekly
Brand.
program, or the
Yeah.
third most important. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, not brand, but you know what I mean, the third most important show. So
But
prior to this, like, this is still, like you say, it's still forward in storylines. It's got, you know, a hell of a gimmick match in the middle of it. It's got a big kind of ending that advances major storylines, and it opens with like the corporation and the
Vince
McMahons
McMahon
coming out
promo.
to the
Yeah.
ring. You know, so like this is all stuff that's.
But this show
you know,
has an
would fit in on Raw.
but this has an identity as well. Kevin
Yeah.
Kelly's doing commentary. Shane's there doing color commentary. This doesn't feel like Raw, but it doesn't feel lesser than Raw. It's weird. It's like WWE had to figure this out, had to do this by mistake, because there's no way they planned this, or if they did plan a fair play, because it's like this is what a second show should be, and it's kind of what SmackDown is now in a lot of ways, where ever since Triple H took over, there is a very different feel, even NXT, a different feel to these shows, and it is very revolutionary to be like, whoa, okay, I'm watching something that isn't Raw. It doesn't feel lesser than Raw, but it's an hour.
It's complementary. It's it's probably what they had in mind when they initially launched Rampage. It's probably what we're hoping Rampage would be. And in some ways, they've kind of succeeded in that. Yeah, it does kind of showcase the mid-card guys more, and then towards the end of the show, it might advance like a major storyline. But the big difference, as you say, is Rampage just feels like a kind of a lesser Dynamite, whereas Heat, particularly in this era, it's kind of very much its own thing.
It is its own thing, and I mean, Kevin Kelly isn't the best commentator in the world. I know some people like him.
I thought he was not so bad that he was like putting me off like the commentators do now, but I thought he was a dreadful commentator. Like he wasn't given any information, but he sounded excitable. He sounded like he was really enjoying the show.
I'll tell you what though, I'd much rather him than Michael Cole. There's an alternative universe where Kevin Kelly is the WWE, where Michael Cole is now, because Michael Cole is in the place where he should have always been, interviewing the Blue Meanie on this show. And that's where he should have stayed.
You can take that as an indictment or as an endorsement, whatever you want.
You can take it whatever. That's where he should be, interviewing the Blue Meanie, and that's it. Because when I saw him pop up, I was like, "Oh, there he is. Oh, he's gone now. This is grand." And Kevin Kelly's back. I prefer Kevin Kelly, but no. I mean, the thing about it is, if this show had have stayed the way it was, I don't think a lot of the problems that WWE had maybe wouldn't have been a thing. Where, like, and definitely the pre-show. I mean, bringing back the pre-show, they should have just called it Heat, because it's like, even for the nostalgia of it, just to be like, oh, look at it, because there's something special about it, because it's like, it feels different. It feels like this weird thing that you're watching, and you're like, okay, this is cool. I like this, you know. And it's on a Sunday. It's a cool night. I always loved when they'd have them before the pay-per-views. So I mean, absolutely, absolutely, we're going to cover Heat now when we're doing. And you know what we might do, Martin? Actually, we might just do a run of Heats for any of the shows we missed, just to kind of fill them in, because it's an hour. It might even do it as a bonus show on the Patreon or something, where we just do Heat.
Yeah,
because
and
fun shows.
It's an hour when you're watching on the network. It's
they zip.
35 to 40 minutes is all it really is.
It just zips through. But yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched Heat, folks, and you're like, what are you talking about? One, you're probably not listening to this show. Two, you're probably under the age of 25. And if you are, you know, those things, and you're listening to the show and you're under the age of 25, do yourself a favor, watch some Heats. They're good.
Although I would say, if you are of that kind of era, and you're used to wrestling, not wrestling itself, but wrestling fans now, brace yourself before you go and Heat, because the signs, and this isn't even a particularly like bad one, but the signs range from the hilarious to the homophobic to the extremely horny. Like, the horniness of the signs in the audience for this bog standard Sunday night Heat is alarming.
Now, see, the thing about it is, again, we've often joked that once Twitter discovers wrestling, that's it. And the thing about the signs in this era is, yeah, it's either. Well, look who was on the show. Sable was on the show, so they're extremely horny for Sable.
Yeah, they're just...
They really are. But then, yeah, there's a lot of homophobic signs. And to be fair, I'm glad that's not a thing anymore. To be honest with you, I mean, it's of its time, but yeah,
it's like there's so many signs in the crowd that are noticeable that are such and such heel is
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
whatever derogatory word for gay you want to use, and they're everywhere. Like,
yeah.
And that's it.
Same.
It's just
it's the same
Triple
on
H's or whatever, you know.
But it's the same on both brands. It's companies. WCW has them. It's funny though, right?
Oh God, yeah.
WCW think because it's in Atlanta, it'd be more conservative. They don't really do it as much as WWE. WWE are always, the fans anyway, are like in this time are always, you will find 60% of those signs.
I think this is around, because this is around the time with DX
and South
DX,
Park and
South Park and DX were really pushing that kind of, sophomoric humor.
Yeah, they were. And like DX showed up on the show. So the thing about it is, folks, again, if you can grow up with this, or if maybe you haven't watched it in years, prepare yourself, because it is a very, very different time. And we are kind of just taking it as we find it, Even
myself, I was taken aback just by realizing and remembering how friggin' weird the Blue Meanie is. Oh my God.
He's such a weird guy.
Weirding me out.
Yeah, and he does commentary and it's even more weird on the show. But
afterwards I was sort of sitting in the house on my own, huddled into the corner going, the Blue Meanie's not real. The Blue Meanie can't hurt you.
I think they missed the opportunity with the Blue Meanie to really push that. What they would do with him, he'd be gone within a year. I mean, probably for the best. But they missed an opportunity with him, and we will have discuss. And I mean, this is why doing these shows are crazy, because you would never see the Blue Meanie on Raw. Why? They have Austin and The Rock. Like, Blue Meanie's never getting TV time, so we will be looking at Heat again. If there is interest, we might actually do it as a separate show on Patreon, because I really want to watch these Heats. Because it's just fun. But yeah, and I mean, also if we leave a show to the last minute like we did today, we'll probably watch the Heat again. So that's what you guys are in for. So yeah, prepare accordingly. Right. And they are all on the network as well, which, before the network, actually, I had all the episodes of Heat on a hard drive, all of them, and there's only 250 of them. So I mean, they all are there. You can find them, but they are on the network. So.
Yeah, what did it went from 98 to
2002, I think, 2003.
Is that it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, very short period of time. Yeah. Then it was replaced by Velocity.
Yeah, that's
Velocity had some good like, that's where AJ Styles and stuff made his debut in WWE.
Not as
no, it's AJ Styles, yeah.
Yeah, but like, is this back around the time of his WCW?
Yeah.
It's not like they didn't try him out on Velocity before he appeared at the Royal Rumble.
No. He was hanging out in Florida. Did you not listen to the promo?
AJ Styles, give him a dark match on Velocity. See what he can do.
All right. Okay, so this show, again, that's the time period. It's 10th of January, 1999. Freeman Coliseum, San Antonio, Texas. So a lot of love for Shawn Michaels in this, which will become very important in a few minutes. And the show began with Vince and Shane McMahon, Jared Briscoe, Pat Patterson walking down to the ring and cutting a promo on Mankind, disgusted by Mankind winning the WWE Championship. And here's the thing: they played a little video package beforehand explaining kind of what happened, that Mankind was screwed over his opportunity to go into the Royal Rumble. And then he nearly broke Shane's arm, so he got a title match, and that's how he got the title match. Austin came out and cost The Rock the belt, and that's how Mankind won. And he celebrates with DX. It's weird though, because him and Triple H killed each other the week before in a match, and Triple H is out there celebrating with him, and I'm like,
well, DX was always kind of fascinating like that. In that Triple H was. Even when Triple H is a good guy, he's always kind of been
in it for himself as well. Yeah.
But DX was always over. as a group, DX was always over, and
Yeah,
DX was
it's just
always
weird.
kind of skewed babyface.
It's weird though, because when you're watching this in revisionist history, which is how this time period and this particular angle is portrayed by WWE now, none of that's there, and it makes sense because it's just a weird thing to think about. You're like, wait, how did this happen? But when you look at Triple H's heel turn later on when he joins the corporate ministry, it makes way more sense because you're like, oh, they set this up back in January. I don't know. It's long-term storytelling, but WWE's mindset up until Triple H ironically took over, didn't really do long-term storytelling. So I mean, it is what it is, Okay, well again, long-term storytelling was like a feature of the Attitude Era, but not in recent years. So what's cool about this is obviously they were cutting the promo. They announced that Shawn Michaels was the hero, and he had to be fired because he super kicked Shane. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
He super kicked Vince. Sorry, not Shane. Shane was jumping around the ring like Shane McMahon, who was very annoying. Actually, yeah, this was incredibly annoying. But I suppose he's a heel. That's what it's supposed to be, right?
I was really expecting, and maybe I was probably putting too high an expectation on an average Sunday Night Heat, but I was really expecting, because it was his hometown, Michaels to show up at some stage.
So
even
was
if
I.
it was just jump out of the crowd and run in.
I thought he was going to cut a thing on the Titantron.
So what happens is they're running down Sean. They're giving him the business, and then McMahon notices Jose Lothario is in the crowd, and he's the guy who trained Shawn Michaels, and he, for a certain period of time, was kind of his manager, would appear in the shows with him.
Yes.
And he takes him in the ring, and they have a bit of a back and forth, and Jose Lothario says something like, I don't need to apologize for Shawn Michaels. And then I'm waiting for him to say, he could do it himself, or something like that. And, Michaels would appear. But yeah, surprisingly, it never happened. And he gets a beat down from the Stooges.
He does. And, no, he actually says is he flips him the bird and he says to Vince, he sucks.
Yes.
And then he gets kicked out of the ring. And at that point, I thought they would have done, Shawn Michaels would have appeared on the Titantron at the very least. I was very surprised that he was, but then again, I'm watching Heat.
Well, if he was fired at the time, I was expecting him to leap from the crowd, because then that doesn't break up the sort of continuity of the story.
I think that does happen on a Raw at some point, but
the only reason was because, again, this was his hometown.
Yeah. But here's the thing: if they did that, they wouldn't have been able to set up the wider story, which is Shane McMahon appearing on commentary with Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah.
Which is the real story of the night. Like, the cool thing about this is it doesn't really matter about what's going on in the ring that much. There's some cool stuff that happens, but everything that happens on the show actually tells this interwoven story that is actually fascinating. Like, you care about the Blue Meanie for some reason, which is amazing because nobody cares about the Blue Meanie.
It's mad, and the matches are all like I assume that over the course of this review, it'll mainly be about the story and the show as a whole, because the matches are kept fairly short.
But here's the thing, man. What you said there is something that people don't remember about Raw in the Attitude Era. Matches were 2 minutes.
Oh yeah.
No, the wrestling. Here's the thing. I'm gonna break some illusions here for people. In the Attitude Era, wrestling didn't matter.
No.
Matches were 2 minutes on Raw and SmackDown.
And unless it was like real top level stuff, a lot of them weren't even very good in the couple of minutes they got.
No, but the pay-per-view matches were always solid. The house matches apparently were always pretty decent, because that's where they would try stuff out. But as far as like what people don't realize now, or may not realize because they're young, WCW is what you watched for the wrestling. You never watched WWE for the wrestling. You watched it because
it's mad
stories
to think about it. WCW was where the serious wrestling fans were. WCW was AEW back in the day.
But AEW is WCW now. Like it's the way it is. Like it's the way it's always been, and that's kind of the mentality. You'd watch WWE for the stories, and the pay-per-views would be where everything happened. But man, you could watch You could watch Raw and not watch the TV. You just listen to it because it didn't matter. Nothing that happened on the show really mattered because it was overall the story. So, but what's cool about this is this broke away from Raw because it had like a super rare gimmick match twice.
Yeah, I was really surprised that it
in the show. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot these happened. Because obviously I know the ones that happen on Raw. And I love this gimmick. This is probably one of my favorite gimmicks. I really like it. But the fact that it happened twice, and it got me because I didn't realize it was happening at the end. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Now, the funny thing about it is, right? 2 out of 4 of these matches have no finish.
Yeah.
They get thrown out. So they don't mean anything. It means nothing. But that doesn't mean it was bad. So let's get into it, right? So the first match here is, Al Snow and Blue Meanie are interviewed by Michael Cole. And it's super weird and crazy. And, they're obviously talking about stuff which we can't repeat here because it's the watershed. But Al Snow had a gimmick where he carried around a mannequin head at the time. So, use your imagination. And
what does everybody want?
What does everybody want? Exactly. This is when he started doing it because what happened was he got blood batted by the Brood. So the Brood used to do a thing where they drop blood on everybody called bloodbath. That drove Al Snow crazy, and he started imagining that this mannequin head would talk to him. And this is actually the origin of that gimmick. It happened on Raw, and then it was fleshed out on Heat. So thanks to Heat, that's how you got Al Snow's most popular gimmick. Isn't that crazy? Right? So Christian comes out to the Brood music, and Christian looks badass in this. I've always been a fan of Christian, but the
Brood entrance is
amazing.
Class.
It's amazing. It gets everyone over.
The music is brilliant. The lighting and just a wee bit of smoke and everything, like, it's phenomenal.
It's weird to see Christian out by himself. You never really saw that. You only saw it every now and then. Like, he won the light heavyweight championship, which was weird, against Taka Michinoku. At some point in 1998, I can't remember the exact pay-per-view, but it did happen, and that was weird. But when he was in the Brood, you never really saw him on his own. So to see him out in Heat was kind of unique. He's always there with Edge or with Gangrel. And also the fact that Gangrel was weird.
One of them wasn't at least just sort of with him, like stand at ringside or something. But I was watching it going, God, it's like fair play to Christian. Like, really one of the really genuinely top guys who maybe isn't always thought of as a top guy.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of his run happened in TNA and that. But here he is. So this show is 1999.
Yeah.
Here he is 23 years later, and he's still kicking ass. And not like good for an old fella or in
he's legitimately brilliant.
Yeah, or like Sting in matches where his weaknesses are maybe hidden or that. No, Christian's going out there today and having brilliant matches on AEW.
And he does eventually win with a falling reverse DDT. So it's the Impaler that he wins with, which they didn't have a name for it at that point. That's how little Christian was used outside of the Brood. They didn't have a name for his finish. And he didn't really look comfortable. He just kind of looked like he does look very weird.
Is this how long into the Brood gimmick is this?
It's about
January 99, so it can't be that long into it.
No, it's 3 to 6 months. It's not super long.
Right.
They just started doing the bloodbaths.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing about this is that the match, like I say, probably partly down to the fact that it's mid-card stuff, and also down to the fact that the show's only an hour long. The match itself is decent, by no means a bad match. It is
decent. It is very decent, yeah.
But it's essentially just something around which the angle can happen. So Goldust comes out and steals Head and runs off with Head, and then Blue Meanie
literally the mannequin head, folks.
Yeah.
Literally, it's a mannequin's head that he steals.
And then the Blue Meanie takes off after Goldust. So even when Al Snow gets pinned, he straight away just hops up and runs out of the ring to run after.
The camera cuts. You don't even see the pin. The camera cuts to Goldust.
So like I say, the match is perfectly decent television match, but it's not the priority.
No, the priority is the Al Snow and Goldust are feuding. That's the real angle. And the Brood are kind of Actually, we'll talk about Brood next week when we're doing the Supernatural thing because the Brood are great. But
yeah,
um,
I've a list of spoopy wrestlers here.
yeah, and I mean, there you go. Like the Brood are the case in point why they were so cool because they're not really aligned to anyone yet. They don't. The ministry isn't there. The corporation is there, but not really. It's not fleshed out like it would be. They're just kind of there, just doing things. And this is one of the things that they do. Bloodbath people. It's cool. Next up, we have Michael Cole again for some reason interviewing Sable in San Antonio. So they're literally just like walking and they're having the chats. And Sable's like, yeah, I get to do all this stuff now because I'm the women's champion, and isn't it great? And Michael Cole's like, isn't it a big responsibility? And she's like, yeah, it's fine though. And I'm like, wow.
Sable, she was a fire promo. She was amazing in the ring.
A bag of charisma.
That's why she made it all the way to the top.
Careful, Brock Lesnar will find and kill the two of us.
I was just about to say, do you think because so we were talking earlier about the signs and 50% of them are homophobic and 50% of them are just horny for Sable.
Yeah.
Do you think so Brock was would he have been a fan at this time and he was like, bang, that's my fantasy woman and I will have her?
You know what? If we ever get to interview Brock Lesnar,
I'm not asking him.
Well, no, we ask and then we run really quickly.
You ask.
That's the thing of this.
I'll be like, Brock's great interview. Thanks very much. Wrestling Rewind, the only podcast by wrestling fans who still love wrestling. And just before we head, Dara has one more question for you.
And then what you do, you ask and then run out the building really quickly. Because, I mean, because he falls so fast, he can get you. He has to kind of, But, yeah, no, I would be scared to ask that question. But, journalism needs to be done, damn it.
I'll fight Punk, but I'm not putting my undefeated record on the line up against Lesnar.
I don't think there's any fight with Lesnar. I think he just kills you and that's it. There's no fight. There's no fight. Okay. So after that, which the segment goes on far too long, it goes on 4 minutes. It is very tedious, and they cut back and forward to it a couple of times. I'm not a big fan of it. But the next segment makes up for it, right? So Dan Severn, who has been kayfabe crippled by Owen Hart, is the referee. Now, we posed a question last week when we were talking about the fight pit. Did the referee ever be on top of the lines then? We got our answer.
There you go.
Yes, they did. They did. Sometimes they weren't, sometimes they were. In this case, Dan Severn was on top of the lines then. So it's very much like the fight pit. I love the lines then. I think it's one of the best gimmicks that they need to bring back. Even have it with the fight pit. Just bring. I think it looks. No, I mean, I'm sorry. Throughout the whole night, it's just in the corner, and it looks so cool, man. It's
a really good idea. It's just this iteration of it is very flawed. They have something. They genuinely really have something with it, and all it would take is maybe a few changes, a few tweaks to how it's presented. There's I liked both matches that were in the Lions Den, even though it's fairly limited in what you can do. But I think they have something here. It just needs tweaked slightly. There's just something missing from it. But it's one of those things that, even though it's flawed, maybe partly because it's flawed, you kind of love it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, so Owen Hart, we haven't really talked. Owen Hart hasn't really appeared on this show that much, which is surprising, to be honest with you. But he has a couple times. I think this is his second appearance in Alliance Den on this show. No, I think he had a match. We did a match with Ken Shamrock in SummerSlam 1998. So he's kind of a vet to these kind of things. Steve Blackman would have my favorite Lions Den match with Ken Shamrock in SummerSlam 1999, a Weapons Lions Den match, which is even cooler again. But
how many Lions Den matches have there been?
See, I thought there was only 4. There must have, although there's 2 in this show alone. So obviously my numbers were wrong. They're probably close to 10.
Oh wow!
Does Vince even have one as well? Yeah, Vince had one with Ken Shamrock as well, I think.
Well, yeah, that's something worth looking at. I can see they're all kind of centered around the likes of Shamrock,
Blackman and Shamrock. Yeah, they're the 2 lads that use the line.
Because this is kind of their version of UFC. This is.
Well, here's the thing: they are so ahead of their time in this, because this wasn't like I remember seeing. It's left such an impact on me that 22 years later, I'm still talking about it. And they were so because UFC wasn't a big thing in 1999. UFC wasn't a big thing until maybe 2010, 2009. So, I mean, to see that would be people's first interaction with a cage like that, you know?
It was certainly the wrestler's first interaction with it, because
they struggled a great deal,
they're two great wrestlers, man. I think like obviously everyone loves Owen Hart, but I think Steve Blackman is maybe the perfect mid card guy.
You know the sad part about Steve Blackman. So Steve Blackman was brought in, got an injury. I think he got really sick. He got diverticulitis. Speaking of Brock Lesnar. Took him out for 2 years, and then he worked his way back. So he was supposed to be a big thing 2 years before this, and would only come back in 1999.
He's over as hell with this crowd.
Incredible.
Everyone, like, he never really, like, so obviously partly down to that illness. I didn't know that. Never really made it to the heights he should have. Man, he had an amazing look. He had an amazing character that didn't require him to be a great promo, because everything he did was in the ring.
Yeah.
And he was the kind of guy who, even if you never made him the top guy, he could always be counted on to be like, say you have a new champion, to be their first like defense. And, you know, he would put up a really credible, you know, holy hell, this guy's dangerous. He might win. So I think Steve Blackman is maybe the perfect, and I don't mean this as an insult, the perfect mid-card guy.
The perfect gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, like, and that's the way they should have used them. And they didn't for one reason or another, and head cheese happened and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, we'll get to that when we're doing our 2000 run. But, I mean, look. So I will go on record and say Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman are two biggest missed opportunities in WWE history.
Oh.
Legitimately.
Massive.
Two of them could have been top-tier guys, but we're probably couple of years too early. And this kind of match proves it. This match is pretty good. Owen Hart, you know, I don't know. Owen Hart didn't look right in this, but he wasn't supposed to. He's supposed to be
tell,
you know.
You can definitely tell both guys are really getting used to the feel of the cage. So the Lions Den, just for anyone who hasn't seen it, one of the unique features of it is that the cage around it's not even in the ring. The cage is the ring. It's sloped
so you
at
can't climb
angle.
it. Yeah, so you can't really climb it.
Yeah, so there's a couple of moments here where, for example, Blackman tries to suplex Owen into the cage, but it's such a weird angle that his feet hit it, and then Owen pretty much just free falls, like nearly onto his head. There's another moment where Blackman tries to like jump off the cage, but again, it doesn't really work because of the angle.
Yeah.
And then the way it's set up is that it's the panels, the cage panels are actually quite small. So at several points around the cage, you don't have the kind of wire mesh. You have the literal steel support bars, but they're every couple of feet. And there's a few moments where you could see either Owen or Blackman was whipped into the cage and hit the bars, and you could see in their faces they were like, "Oh my god, that
hurt." That hurt. Yeah.
So there's a lot of getting used to it, a lot of feeling around. By no means like an amazing match, but you've got two great guys in there and they make the most of it.
But you know what, Martin? It wasn't an amazing match, but it left an impact.
Oh, that's exactly what I was saying. Like,
I mean, the thing about it is, it's like the match itself. It's kind of different to the fight pit, right? Where you're like, oh, they went into this. I mean, this match was let's be generous, 4 minutes, right? And
and no ending.
And no ending. The ending happened. Blackman had a dragon sleeper. Sorry, Dan Severn jumped down, attacked Blackman, put him in a dragon sleeper, and then the officials pulled him apart, and there was no.
So that was one thing. The other thing that caught my eye about this match. So Owen Hart gets the sharpshooter on Steve Blackman.
Yeah.
And Steve Blackman does the reverse to the sharpshooter, where he ends up with a sharpshooter on Owen. And I thought that was interesting because very rarely nobody but Brett or Owen got to do that reversal.
Yeah. Steve Blackman, man, again, if you were to just watch this and they were building towards it, I don't know what happened. I mean, we probably should look into this, but something happened at some point where they just you were like, this guy is the business, has everything. And then, him and Dan Severn looked like they were going to go have a serious match. So we're probably going to have a look and see what actually happened.
Gotta say as well, Severn looks amazing.
Yeah.
He looks like someone went back to like the 40s or 50s and just plucked like the top guy from then and put him in the 90s.
The top bruiser. Yeah.
He looks like he should be coming to the ring with a big pipe in his mouth and, two huge barbell weights, just like he was incredible.
It's like, Gangs in New York kind of thing. That's why he looks
exactly.
like,
He looks like a beefed up Daniel Day-Lewis.
Exactly.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
So obviously this match went to a no contest. And then, but interestingly enough, this was again to finish out the storyline. So Blackman was throwing chairs around backstage, and they would cut back to him a couple of times, so it wasn't over. The next match was a bit of a dud. I love the Headbangers, but they were never a good tag team. They were just kind of gas, and they had a fictitious Universal Tag Team Championship belt. So these belts didn't exist. This is a match to end nothing. It's like Science belt.
But isn't this like? And I've always had issue with the Universal title. I know it refers to the WWE universe, but like that's not what it sounds like. It sounds like you've gone from the world title to the universe. Like, yeah, but
that's what happened here.
But that's what I mean. In 1999, at least they knew how friggin' silly that sounds.
Like now, if Vince was still in control of WWE now, I would be expecting a Universal Tag Team Championship that the Usos can win. But no, look, the Oddities, Golga and Kurrgan. Some people like the Oddities. I never liked the Oddities.
Well, Kurrgan. So these guys came along after the Truth Commission.
Yes.
After they were disbanded.
Yes.
Kurrgan is awful.
He's terrible.
He's only actually in the ring. Most of this match is Golga.
Yeah.
He's only actually in the ring, Kurrgan, for a few minutes. Yeah. And in that few minutes, he's he gets kicked in the leg and he like sells his back.
Yeah.
And, he gets kicked
real
in
bad.
one direction and he like moves into it. Like he's dreadful, right?
Yeah.
Now that was bad enough, but what really hurt me, like genuinely, so I did a bit of research after watch the show, because it's why Dara pays me the big bucks.
Yep.
And this genuinely broke my heart. I was really upset. I never knew this. Do you know who Golga of the Oddities is?
I can lie, or I can say the truth. No, I don't.
He's Earthquake.
Oh man.
Is that not the saddest? Is that not this? Have I bummed you out for the rest of the evening? Because that's so.
I mean,
that ruined my day.
It explains an awful lot why he was so decent in the ring, but it's also quite unfortunate at the same time.
So apparently Earthquake went away and he lost a load of weight. Like he was, like, still big man, obviously, but he lost. Like, do you remember when he was at his height of Earthquake? He was like this insanely fit but incredibly heavy man.
He was a accomplished sumo wrestler as well, I believe.
Oh, he was incredible, yeah. So apparently he went away and he lost a load of weight. So he came back because he didn't have that stature anymore. He'd lost a load of weight to the point where he just looked like an average fat guy, even though he was still incredibly like.
No, to be honest with you, that's exactly what was in my head when I was watching it. Someone who was. Yeah, that's what I was like. It didn't help that he was in a t-shirt that kept riding up as well. I'm like, man, this looks real bad. So
apparently when he went back to WWF, they were like, you're too small now to do the Earthquake gimmick. So they stuck him in this mask and put him with the Oddities.
Man.
I used to think that whenever we were watching like late WCW and kind of seeing how far the likes of Vader had fallen. That was nothing. When I found out Golga was Earthquake, that ruined my day.
But Golga and Kurrgan did get the win.
They did. They're the intergalactic universal tag team champions.
And I don't think they ever lost the belts. So I mean, That's something, right?
That's it. That
There you
makes
go.
up for it.
There you go. So after the match, Blackman finds Severn in the parking lot, and they have a little bit of a brawl. Hart makes the save, and then Hart and Severn drive off together. The next was, a dip in the show. Mick Foley shows up, and they do a home footage thing. Now, here's the thing. At the time, we never saw that footage. That was kind of the first time that footage was shown, but you've probably seen it to death. It's on every Mick Foley thing and every gimmick ever since. So it was fresh then. Now,
fair play. I wonder, did Mick know when he was filming himself jumping off the roof of his house that, that not even that would be his entrance into wrestling, that specific footage would be seen everywhere
for the next 20 years.
Because me and
forever,
my friends,
really.
When we were younger, we made wrestling videos, and I swear to God, if someone told me, Martin, you could be the AEW World Champion, all you have to do is let people see the tapes. Nope, that's grand.
So this show, so throughout the show, there was, there was this secret of what Vince McMahon's going to do. Apparently there was a surprise that Vince McMahon was going to do. So we see backstage that Vince is talking to the Big Boss Man, our boy, the Big Boss Man, the ultimate Bookily, Big Boss Man. Love the Big Boss Man.
The only cop who's welcome in South Armagh.
So Big Boss Man gets into the Lions Den with Tony Chimmel, right? So this is like Tony Chimmel. He looks like he's, from the 80s. It's so weird because you wouldn't see him until another 7 years when he was doing the Rated R Superstar thing with Edge. And then he's like, right, he introduces Triple H, which is crazy. Triple H comes into the Lions Den. They have a brawl, looks like a beast. And you're like, had the Boss Man and Triple H. I didn't think I wanted to see that match.
Really, but it was good.
Really
like when the Boss Man had a period of time, sort of after the weight loss, and then before things went off the rails altogether.
After he came back from WCW,
where he was really, really great.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the things that got me about this was how, so we were talking earlier about how the wrestlers didn't really know what to do with the Lions Den. You can kind of tell nobody did, because during the initial Lions Den match, the commentators were going, we don't even know what the rules are here. Is it pin? Is it submission? There's no DQ. We know that. But how the hell does this work? We don't know what a Lions Den match is. And then when this match started, the first thing the commentators said was oh my God, we didn't know this is a Lions Den match. They're going at it in the Lions Den. I guess this is a Lions Den match.
So we had 2 Lions Den matches on Heat. And in our chat, Martin, I was like, when you see it, you'll see it. And this is it. 2 Lions Den for the price of 1. Like, come on. Brilliant. And so Shane leaves the announcer's table and then throws the nightstick in. He climbs the cage, throws the nightstick in, and he starts baiting Triple H out of it. DX run in and they can't, but the corporation appears. So you have this big brawl with DX and the corporation, and then there's a brawl until the show ends. And I think this show is the tightest 35 minutes of it. It's half an hour of wrestling as a show of what wrestling is and can be that you'll ever see. I think it should be studied in universities for how cool it is. It's like you made gold out of nothing. All you had to do was a cage match that had no rules and nobody knew what was going on, and just 1 or 2 stars and the rest just jobbers, and it was glorious. Michael Cole was away from the commentary cable. It was brilliant. Had everything.
And your first 2 ever Lions Den matches, 2 non-finishes.
And Triple H was in one. I did not know Triple H was in a Lions Den match, so that made it better. In my book, he won. But if the Boss Man won, I'd still be happy because the Boss Man, Well, but it's also
now we know where NXT got the idea for the fight pit.
Yeah, probably.
Triple H was in the second ever Lions Den match.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the second ever Lions Den match, because there was a Lions Den match in SummerSlam 1998.
So this wasn't.
No,
I thought this was the first one.
No, Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock had one on SummerSlam. Now, I'm actually going to do some research and look into what the first one was, but I think that was the first one. Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock in the Lions Den match. But it's cool and it's interesting because you think, we said Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman were in these matches. It's interesting that, it's like a WWE, 2K game where you're like, oh yeah, Lions Den, Triple H and Big Boss Man. That's what it felt like. It didn't. There was no reason for them to be there. They just were, you know.
And then DX, like you're saying at the end, DX comes running in and it ends in this big brawl and all that. But DX aren't even like, they're not even dressed like DX. They're just in like street clothes. Like Road Dogg climbs into the cage.
And he has a hoodie on.
He's in this hoodie and it's like, who the hell is that?
Yeah, because he doesn't only have the hoodie on. He has a do-rag on. He has the hoodie and the hoodie's up pulled like Kenny. And you can't even see him like.
Because I thought, I was looking at them climbing in the ring going, oh my God, who, like, that's going to be a big reveal. They're going to jump in the cage and beat them down and then whip the hood back and it's going to be like, Austin or somebody. It's like, no, it's just Road Dogg in his like, regular street clothes.
Like, he walks around like that, which is bizarre because, I mean, you can't see him. And I wouldn't have even known it was him if it wasn't for the commentator saying, oh, that's Road Dogg. It's like, oh, fair enough.
Yeah, that was exactly how I found out as well, because I was like, wait, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? It's like, oh, there's Road Dogg. No, that's disappointing. Yeah,
so it's like, you know, a weird show. I would 100% recommend it. It's probably on YouTube. It's on the network. It's 35 minutes. The only down point really is the Sable Mick Foley thing, only for the fact that I've seen that Mick Foley biography for 20 years. But other than that, it was probably great at the time. But look, I would give the show, it's a great watch. We are 100% going to do more of these in future, Martin. We're going to make them mandatory before.
Oh yeah, it's such an easy watch, and like you say, it serves as a kind of backdrop to whatever the main storylines are at the time. So, and I
am serious as well. If there is an appetite, you know, we'll do an extra Patreon exclusive show where we talk about Heat, and you know, we'll do those in banks. But we'll have to see. Let us know if there is an appetite for that. TheWrestlingRewind.com is where you can contact us as well. So, Martin, before we get out of here, is there anything you want to plug?
No, I've finally 100%ed Hades. I don't know if I mentioned that last week, but it took me 300 hours.
Holy hell.
I have spent more time on Hades than Breath of the Wild.
Wow.
But finally 100% of it.
Fair play. I plan to play a lot of Switch, and hopefully I will finish Hades soon as well.
Well, is it Horrenda or Aborted Earth? It's Horrenda, is it?
Horrenda, yeah.
I have a big tour coming up.
Yeah, we do actually. Yeah.
So you'll have a lot of time.
Yeah, a lot of traveling over to the UK and such. So yeah, man, the Switch is going to be living in my bag. That's why I got it actually to travel around. But sure, look, you know,
that Hades on the go.
Absolutely, that's when you need it. But yeah, look, guys, I will plug the WrestlingRewind.com, NerdToKnowMedia.com. All the shows are there. They're there for free at the time being. We don't have any Patreon tiers at the moment, but we will be setting them up. Obviously, as we said, we're going to do this Heat series as well. And next week, we're going to be talking about the Spoopies. The Spoopy
Spoopies. I love how whenever at the end of the show Dara says, do you have anything to plug, he always does something like real professional, and it's about the brand and the show and all that, and he goes, Martin, do you have anything to plug? And it's just like, whatever my achievement this week was.
That's important too, Martin. It's important to be proud of things, you know. And look, Hades is not an easy game. Legitimately, do play Hades. It's great. But yeah, again, guys, thank you so much for checking us out this week. We'll be back next week.
You have nothing else to do on a Saturday? Do you like nerd things? Now check out Nerd to Know Basis here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 5 PM to 6 PM, and then head over to nerdtoknowmedia.com for all of our shows as part of the Nerd to Know Media radio network.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.